final question, Mr. Ambassador. Of course, China is a big cultural powerhouse right now, and um, we all know that the this is coming from my experience that um, the China is now venturing itself closer to being a more creative powerhouse, and of course, through it, their streaming services are now entering into a new phase because we have heard that we TV have been already been operating here in the Philippines and Southeast Asia. How do you think Chinese culture, the explosion of Chinese culture, Chinese drama, and other cultural products will be one of the key reasons for key diplomatic ways for China to be a soft power in itself, sir?
Well, I think that is the challenge that China is facing right now: how to improve its soft power. Uh, it's still a work in progress. But when you speak of the cultural exchange and the cultural being a cultural powerhouse, actually, this is one of the challenge for the Philippines and China. It's how to understand each other better, and I think the entry of more soap operas or TV programs from China will help Filipinos understand the Chinese culture better, because there are a lot of similarities. Being both part of Asia, there are very strong similarities between Asian and Philippine culture. There are also a lot of differences because the Philippines, in our case, were much more cosmopolitan. We were under a Spanish colony, an American colony, a Japanese colony. so so we've had this international exposure. The Chinese have their own century of humiliation. So they've had this. There is this combination, but I think, in the same way that, unlike, K-pop or Korean operas, the Chinese have a long way to go. Okay, but here soap operas are very popular, uh, and Chinese soap operas is, one of the items you can watch on TV here. And I think there are certain themes that are recurrent, that are universal, and that the Filipino audience will be able to appreciate. The same is true for Filipino soap operas or movies. There is a market here in China. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of inquiries on what possible movies they could introduce to the Chinese market, and TV programs. So you see, one of the problems, I think, in the Philippines right now is we've been exposed to Western culture for so long, and Western media. So it's almost a knee-jerk reaction. It's like anything but China, or if it's China, it's suspect. And part of this is really suspicion and trust due to lack of understanding. I think as we get more exposure uh, to the positive sides of Chinese culture, because, after all, you have several millennia of cultural history here. Chinese literature, Chinese painting, Chinese poetry, and Chinese drama, all of this. And Chinese TV is becoming to be a powerful force in the region. So I think it's a welcome development, uh, if it would lead to better understanding, better mutual understanding, in which case we'd be able to deal with China and the Chinese people just like any other people. What are their likes and dislikes? They're not to view them in a stereotyped manner. The that the way it's portrayed in certain movies or whatever. But one of the things we do actually is this aspect in terms of introducing Philippine culture to China, ranging from our cuisine. We hold Philippine food fairs, ranging from dances. I mean, the Ballet Philippines was here. Manila Symphony was here, and they played in a joint concert with the Chinese. The same with Ifugao culture, ethnic culture. There was a group that introduced it here in China. Vice versa. I think in the Philippines, it would be useful to be exposed to a certain dose of Chinese culture so as to understand the mindset better and to see where we think in similar ways and where we are very different and to understand where they're coming from. And I think we already have this phenomenon. I mean, after all, we're very close. We're just separated by the South China Sea. And over the centuries, even before the Spaniards came, there were already friendly contacts between the Philippines and China as far back as the Sung dynasty in the 10th century. And actually, the Sultan of Sulu, even before Magellan came, had already brought a group of several hundred to Beijing and became friends with the Chinese emperor. And there was also a chieftain of of Mindanao, of Agusan, in Butuan, actually, that was already going to Beijing, you know, in the 11th, 12th century. So we have a long history that people are not aware of course, because of the predominance of Spanish and American influence. But we are part of Asia. We are, in a sense, Asian brothers in Asia. So it's always useful to get to know each other. In the same way, we get to know the Japanese and the South Koreans and our Asian brothers. So in that context, I think it is certainly a welcome development that there be more cultural exchanges between the two countries.
Ambassador, here's my last question, and then I'm this is premised on the fact that very few Filipinos know China as well as you do, having lived there and worked there as a journalist, and now, of course, you're posted there as ambassador. How do the Chinese view us, the Filipinos? What is their biggest misconceptions about us? I mean, uh, are they as suspicious about us as some Filipinos are about them? What do they think about the Philippines and our people?
Well, I think there has been a major improvement in our image in the past years. Uh, One of the things, you see, that happened during the past 4 years, it was cut by the public, was that a lot of Chinese tourists were to the Philippines. Yeah, it's almost what 3 to 4 million accumulated over the past, and actually China was set to be the number one source of tourism this year, if not for the pandemic. So as a result of that, actually, there was a lot of it corrected a lot of misimpression because they got to know more about Filipino hospitality, Filipino culture, Filipino beaches. The sun, a lot of Chinese. I mean, especially coming from the hinterlands. I mean, what I'm saying is that the province of Sichuan or northeast China, from the coastal areas, they've never experienced the sun and the beach. And so most of these tourists, by the way, they go to Boracay, so their impression of the Philippines is influenced by Boracay. Beautiful beaches and the sunshine. So they, we also have to balance that. Okay? You see, the problem is it goes from there was an extreme when there was a period of strained relationship. The image of the Philippines was we were like portrayed as this. It's like part of a juggernaut to against China, the containment against China, and that the Philippines was leading the way, serving the interests of a Western power, and so the image now of the Philippines is like a friendly neighbor with an independent foreign policy. You see, the Chinese or the Chinese people, you don't have to be pro-China. You just have to think of your own interests and just have a friendly policy that you're open. And so we can have, in other words, now we're able to be friends and yet disagree on certain issues. We can be friends without being disagreeable to each other. And that, I think, is the basic key in the approach that helped to improve the image. Of course, President Duterte has a very high popularity here, mainly because he's been here several times, and the image of him and President Xi being friendly to each other, that basically sends a signal to the Chinese people, of a friendly leader, and that helps a lot in terms of promoting. It helps a lot in doing work here. There was a time, of course, when the relations were strained, when some of our compatriots, they would not dare say they're from the Philippines because of the possible reaction that we brought a case against them, and the old Chinese thinking under Confucian thinking that if you bring a case against a neighbor, you're slapping the neighbor. So I think the idea of face is very important for the Chinese, and so now that you can still have disagreements, but you can be friends with each other. So I think the basic change in the image of the Philippines is that they view us as a friendly neighbor, uh, and a neighbor that's thinking for its own, looking after its own interests, and and they view us as a sort of a fellow developing country. As a matter of fact, we're in a lower stage of development, and and at the same time, they view the Philippines as, with its natural resources and its hospitable people, as an interesting case study, actually, and something that they know that the Chinese government is providing assistance to the Philippines. So it's got popular support for this whole idea. So there has been a major improvement in terms of the image of the Philippines in China. It's a welcome development and something actually that we should maintain. It doesn't mean that we can have policy swings as long as we don't take a hostile attitude towards China. We can have disagreements without being disagreeable, and how to institutionalize the friendship and the warmth in the relationship, and still maintain doing what we think is based on our own interests.
Ambassador, thank you very much. You've been very gracious with your time, as I said, and we really treasure these talks with you. And I know that you are very busy, and yet you devoted your weekend to us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of that weekend. And any parting words or message from you, Ambassador?
Well, no, I just want to thank everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think what is important looking forward is how we can intensify the cooperation in terms of controlling the virus, in terms of the uh, cooperation against in the pandemic, and at the same time, how to facilitate the economic recovery in the Philippines through trade, through investment, through mutual assistance. So I think what is important going forward, with or whoever the president may be, is how to maintain a level-headed policy and a balanced policy towards China. We don't have to give up our friendship with the U.S. We can be friends with both China and the U.S. And the key, I think, the key thing is to maintain our independent foreign policy, that we think not with Western eyes, nor with Chinese eyes, for that matter, but we view things from a Philippine perspective in terms of what is beneficial for our country. And so that's why what guides our work here in terms of the Philippine Embassy in China is how to maximize the benefits of the friendly and relations we have with China for the Filipino people. So because it's only when, in a sense, it's a battle for the hearts and minds of the people, of the Filipino people, and it's only when the Filipino people uh, feel or derive the benefits in their daily life that they'll be able to see the benefits of this policy. And so I think the issue really is how to make this a long-standing institutionalized policy that will maximize the benefits for the people.
Thank you, Ambassador. We look forward to a normal situation where it'll be safe again to travel, and maybe the next time you're in Manila, if you're not watching a LaSalle game, maybe we can have you over for coffee at the Manila Times.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ambassador. I
Thank
really
you, Mr.
appreciate it.
Ambassador.